Today, we have the pleasure to speak with Arman Eckelbarger, who has been on a couple of times. I want to get to know you a little better. And so we want, well, first off, welcome.
Thanks. Great to be here as always. You guys are, you got good things going on. So
I
love to be part of
appreciate that. Where did you grow up? You're not originally from Florida.
it. Yeah, I have a little bit of an accent, so to speak, but I born and raised in Peru, Indiana. That's where I'm originally from. I did live in Atlanta for a long period, about 9 years too, and I really enjoyed that, except the traffic and then the heavy pollen from the fir trees, which unfortunately kind of taxed me out on allergies. So moved to Florida, and it was, it's a lot better than what it would be in Georgia.
We take you back to Indiana for a little bit. So as we talked about a couple of times, I'm Midwestern from Nebraska. How much of the Midwestern culture did you get into? How rooted in the Midwest were you, Armand? And what was
So
that like?
I was born and raised in the mighty waters of the Wabash River,
Mhm.
and my parents' business was wholesale and retail bait and tackle. So yeah, hunting and fishing, that was just standard protocol for our family. And of course, I had to work so much in the bait shop and drive a truck that I didn't get to do much of either of those, even though I really did enjoy them when I got to do them. But yeah, I mean, my family also bought raw fur in the wintertime before the market collapsed in Europe, which is basically back in the 70s, late 70s, I think is when that kind of collapsed. But it was very interesting. People bringing all these raw, basically dead animals in there, and you got to stack them up. And we didn't do the stripping down for the hides, but we had to put them in a cooler and keep an eye on them, and then wait for the buyer to come in and do the wholesale buying. We just buy from all the local people that like raccoon and fox and mink,
You're not, now,
muskrat,
Armand,
the whole 9 yards. So
Armand, you're not that old. You're starting to sound like you were back in the Hudson Bay
Old trapper
era.
days.
just tell you where it was at, man. It didn't last a long time. We only did that for about 4 or 5 years, but certain things have memories. And you're like, he's like, okay, we're buying all these dead animals and putting them in this cooler, and so where did this end? And but you just, you're a kid, you just learn about it. So
That's great that you shared that story. And any siblings? Were you doing this all on your own work in the shop, or did you have siblings that were helping out?
oh yeah, we have there's 5 kids, so I have 3 brothers and a sister. The sister's oldest, and then I have 3 younger brothers. So I was kind of like, the supervisor in charge. I had to kind of set the example for the rest of the brothers, and
Yeah.
they were pretty strict on me. My sister, well, for whatever reason, they let her kind of do what she wanted. But for me, I had a very regimented lifestyle. My dad, he was in the Marine Corps for 10 years, and so you get up, you do what you're told, you perform, and it was pretty regimented, and that's what I did. But I got lucky enough to play sports, which that was my release, because whatever I had to do to make a team, that's what I was going to do, because I mean, I had to work all day at the store, so I'm like, okay, what do I got to do? And so I was fortunate with that, even though
Which sports, Armand?
genetically I was screwed. I mean, Indiana,
Yeah.
so basketball, because it's winter, so you could play all the time because they had gyms everywhere, and I really enjoyed the game. I mean, people that do, but I played and got to start and all that, but you know, height and size was really not good. So I got picked on a lot and things in school, which is very aggravating. And that's one of the reasons what kind of led me to get into bodybuilding and building strength and stuff to help basically defend myself. Because when you're doing well with sports, you get some jealousy from the other kids. They don't like it. My thing was I was very quick. I could jump really well for my size. And, I could drive the ball and do things as a point guard, which is what they had me doing. And so I could pass but I could also shoot. It's just that, at 5 foot or whatever height it was at the time, you got to be really selective when you get your shots.
Yeah. Yeah. Did you get involved in any other sports, or was basketball the main one?
Well, so again, working for my father, basketball worked out pretty good because during the wintertime, the bait business was slow. And so we're
Hmm.
buying raw fur to help supplement. We're selling firearms and hunting gear and that kind of stuff. So it was easier for me to be able to do basketball. I played tennis in the spring, but the tennis coach I had was just horrible. So I just like, I'll just do my own conditioning. I did run across country for a period of time, but I just don't like distance running. So, and I wanted to play baseball, but that was during peak season of bait, selling bait and doing everything. So I couldn't really work that one out. And football would have been great, but again, as a small, frail kid, I tried, but I couldn't try to tackle these bigger kids. It was just not going to happen. And plus, probably better for me, I would have got hurt most of the time. So It
Yeah.
worked out for what I had to offer.
But now, how about anything else? So you got the sports, you got the work. Were you musically or vocally inclined, or was that the limit of your skills there?
I enjoy music, but no, I wasn't gonna, I wasn't gonna. I didn't see any aspirations of taking that anywhere. So we enjoyed music because that kind of got us through all the hard working days. We'd have, back in those days, the Who and the hard rock. We'd have cassette tapes and play that as we're working all the time to kind of get rid of the mundaneness of the work. Because loading up we had to load up trucks. We had 4 bait trucks over a period of years. So then I ended up having to drive routes to deliver bait at bait shops throughout the state. So I had to learn how to do that. And there's no GPS. There's no way to know how to get there. And so as a 16-year-old, because my dad had me on the road at 16. When I was
Wow.
15, he had me doing short runs because the demand was there and he was growing the business. Now he ultimately grew the business to like $1.4 million of revenue, which I was pretty surprised with that too. My dad only had an 8th grade education. He dropped out of school because of his family issues, and then he joined the Marine Corps. As soon as they would take him.
So how'd you get from being a person to working in a bait and tackle shop and to into your wellness work?
So when I was in high school, I wanted to go to college.
Mhm.
Most of the family members had never done that, so this was going to be a new thing for our family. My sister started to go to school, but then she dropped out and ended up going back later. But I wanted to go to college. I had to get loans. The family, dad had a growing business, but he did qualify for some loans, so I had to absorb those. But he did help me out with what he could. Because like when I worked for the business, I didn't get paid anything. This is just strictly labor of getting it done. You got a room and board. So I wanted to go to college. So I went to Indiana University because it was in-state tuition. Got my degree there. And then when I got out of college, I did a management degree. But the next question is, well, what are you going to do? And so in college, I was into bodybuilding. So I actually started competing my junior year of college in bodybuilding contests at the Mr. Indiana University. And I never won. I always got second place, but I had people that I'm competing against that were older men that don't even go to the school, but they were able to participate to keep, I guess, make it more interesting. So, but I held my own. I got second and third, depending on which contest I was doing. So I wanted to kind of continue doing, but I really liked it. So, and then built my confidence. I put on a lot of muscle. For example, when I graduated high school, I was 5'5" and 120 pounds. So not a very big kid, but by my sophomore year of college, I was 145, and then I grew 2 inches in college, which would have been great for basketball. I got that earlier, but that kind of gave me a lot more confidence. And then I decided, well, I'd like to do bodybuilding. So, coming out of school, what can I do bodybuilding? So I started competing coming out of school. I took my first job with Gold's Gym in Greenville, South Carolina. And I had to work for free for a while to help them build their confidence that I knew what I was doing, which I did in the pre-sale of this new gym. And they liked everything and what I was doing. So I ended up working that, became a manager over a period of time. But all this time I'm doing this bodybuilding training because I wanted to see if I could be a pro bodybuilder. I wanted to be a pro athlete. But then the reality hit after I started competing in the early 90s that, the guy I lost to, he got a pro card, but he was on so much stuff that when he got his pro card, he didn't last very long either because of all the health issues. And I was watching all these guys doing these drugs as I was training, and I'm just like, I'm like, I don't want to go down that path because at the end of the day, you get an attaboy for winning or whatever, and then you get a trophy, and now you still have health issues you're going to be dealing with. Some of these guys are peeing blood because they're doing what they're doing. They're, affecting everything in their body. I'm like, why would you want to do that? The testicles will shrink up, all kinds of issues. I'm like, I'm not going to do that. And I just stayed the natural route, and that's what I continue to do. Progressively, as I got into working with Gold's Gym, then I was in the gym business for 17 years. Okay. So during this journey, I, learned how to manage clubs, and I had 3 different clubs I was buying on contract. The last club, which was basically in 92, I had come across a way to work with companies through another guy that I met through in Tyler, Texas. And it was basically how to sell wellness programs to companies. So I had this little gym I took over, I was buying on contract. We were doing fine. But the guys I was buying it from, there was 3 different ones. They kind of wanted to take the gym back after I turned it around. Anyways, during this time, I was growing this little facility and I learned about how to sell companies. So I learned how to use capitation pricing. And what capitation pricing is, that means an equal levy among all things. So if I had a 20-employee company, what I would do is assume a certain level of participation. So during those days, the participation level would be like 30%. So even though 100% of the people wouldn't come to the gym, I assume that if I priced it at 30% usage, that I would be okay. And so what this meant was, at the time, I was charging $30 a month for a membership. So if I had a 20 employee company, if I do 30% participation, that would be 6 units or 6 memberships times $30. That's $180 a month. The whole company has access to the gym with all the other services, and the company paid me directly to get that rate. And this worked out great. I ended up growing that program to 700 companies, but I didn't do it at that gym. I actually got recruited to go to Atlanta. So I did 35 companies in the small gym I had, which really improved the bottom line. Of course, the guy screwed me out of it, so they got to keep it all. And they got to keep my manager I hired too. So, but it's like, all right, taking another, it's part of my Harvard education of hard knocks. So, but I went to Atlanta and I tore it up. Yeah, I became the director of personal training for this at the time was only a 7-club chain, which grew to 24 clubs. So I was director of personal training, director of corporate wellness, and then I was enrolling one company a week as an average for quite a long period of time, which built the receivables up to $1 million of receivables for that chain of clubs. And plus, when you sell a wellness program of this magnitude, because the company typically pays for it, they may bill something back to the employees, but because the company's paying for it, there's not a lot of sales process. So the sales process is eliminated, and people just come in with their temporary card and get their permanent card, and they get greeted and start getting trained. They get 2 free personal training sessions as a starting point. So what happened was I started selling a lot of personal training because they took the excess money and started looking more into getting training and nutritional services. So this worked out really well. And then whenever an employee left the company, the new company they went to, they would mention, hey, I had this program where the company had this wellness program, which I really liked. It became a recruiting tool. So this is in the 90s with the tech boom and all that going on. So this whole thing just mushroomed. I'd get calls, at least one a day from another company. Hey, we heard about this program. We'd like to learn more. So now I'd schedule an appointment. I'd drive over there, present myself. And some companies I'd close in one day, and some would take 2 weeks because you had to get it appropriated. But the company paid for the employees. So the billing, we did do some checks, but most of it was credit card and EFT. This was unheard of. So this moved me into the next level, which was consulting for other gyms throughout the United States. I did really well with the consulting, but we started having kids. Wife's like, if you're going to travel, this marriage isn't going to work. I'm not going to raise kids by myself. So I was like, okay, I got a problem. I got talking to do insurance and investments. So I did that for 8 years. But then there was issues that came up down the road, and had my wife working with me. And so I got into it with the managing partner and ended up getting screwed out of that deal. So I was like, wow. But at the same time, I'm like, what am I going to do? So I decided to relook at the fitness industry. With what I learned, went and bought this license deal, and it was called Impact at the time. I thought, well, let me just try it. And I got 12 people right out of the box who wanted to do it, and I started training them. Now you got to deal with the weather and other things, but that gave me some cash flow, and I kind of learned, how to work all that for people. And so that ended up blooming into me going into getting a gym later on, about 2 years later. So the next thing I'm training people with this training facility, back in the gym business again. And so that was going really well. I grew that substantially, and my overhead was like 20 some K a month just to maintain that facility. But, we had group training, not one-on-one personal training. So I could train 6 or 7 people by myself, or I could have an assistant trainer. But, it's a better economy of scale. You just got to make sure you have the gym set up properly. All people care about is getting results. And so if they got results, then they would do it. So that was going really good. But then, I got kind of tired of all the long hours. I mean, I'd get up at 4:45. I wouldn't get home till about 7:30. It was a good evening. So my lease was coming up in 2019 in November. During this time, I started working with apps and other technology. So I was actually training people in the gym with an app that I got and kept customizing it. Because prior to that, I was having everybody on these spreadsheets, Excel spreadsheets, and updating all their stuff, reps, sets, and all that, so they can see how they're improving. So I started using the app. I kind of realized, I don't have to necessarily be training these people one-on-one, because when you're doing group training and stuff, you're just kind of keeping an eye on them. And you correct their movements as needed, but you're just babysitting. So with the app, I had demonstration videos I could upload that showed me doing the movement, and then you could put notes in there on key points. So I'm like, I started doing that. I was like, I could, everybody in the gym, next thing they're carrying these iPads or they're using their phone and they're doing their workout. So it was great. So I'm like, what if I just did it online? So I decided in 2019, plus the wife wanted to travel. I had another issue with that. But I was like, okay, well, we got to do it. So I closed the gym down in 2019, and then COVID hit. So I was like, whew, okay, good call there. I had no idea. But then I started working the online, and then the online was again one-on-one. And so I've been doing that for the past 4 years. But then about 6 months ago, I decided to go back into doing wellness again for companies, but it's on a longevity basis. So it's new verbiage, and it's actually a better presentation. And I have technology, so I can work with people in a company and also work with a company. So now I have companies paying me for what I do, the seminars and different things. And then if the employee wants to have some personal coaching, I can help them with that. But that's typically the executives. So that's the direction I'm at this time of day.
And so within that, what are you really working, working within that to do with those individuals? What are you really working to help them accomplish?
So my approach is much different than personal training. I'm not really, I'm a personal trainer, but I also got certified in longevity as a longevity coach through the Spencer Institute. So my approach is very different. So I do extensive lab work. So I'm checking things that you don't get with a normal doctor. I'm also now added in DNA testing. So I have good baseline data to say, hey, here's where you're at. This is if they decide to want to work with me. And then once we know what the baseline data is, then we put together the science-based corrective protocols to help fix the root causes of these issues. So it's going to include proper mindset, nutrition, supplementation, exercise strategy, recovery, sleep, and then hormone optimization. So all these things are critical to getting the person to the point that they want to be at based on their personal goals. And that's what I do now with the different medical teams I use for these other strategies.
That's what I love about your approach, Arman, is that you are taking a very scientific approach to that individual. There's specific DNA, their specific genetic makeup, and then what deficiencies they may be dealing with and how to overcome those deficiencies. It's the best holistic approach that I've seen out there, and I absolutely love it.
Right.
Tim,
Well,
you got a
it
question?
works, which is good.
And now, why do you like this work, Arman? What do you get out of it?
Well, what I like is it's unique. So it kind of separates me from the crowd, which I like that. And then the results. I've had people that I've got video testimonials and stuff too, but they had no idea that you could do things this way. And it's very rewarding as you have to get people results right away. If you don't, then you're gonna have a problem. And so I knew that anyways. And so with these strategies, they start feeling it and they see results pretty quickly, depending on what their goal is. And so that's rewarding in the sense that they're totally surprised, because a lot of people's expectations are, man, well, they're a little reluctant. They're not sure. I don't know if this guy will work for me, and this kind of stuff. And then when I get them in there, and nothing's ever perfect, okay? It gets a little rough sometimes because they have to adjust their lifestyle. But once they start feeling better and their labs come back and they're improved, now they're motivated. So then it's like, okay, what next? I got people now that, they first started me in horrible shape. And then, there's one guy, he's in his 50s, wants to get a six pack. I'm like, okay, well, we can do that. Just understand we got to knuckle down a little bit further.
Them getting their results and saying what's next. But now this is actually one of Breck's favorite questions, but I'm going to steal it from him, which is with all this, what's next for you to keep going? You have a big goal, you have a big project, you have a big dream you want to make happen next?
Yeah, so like I mentioned before, I want to work with companies because like when I do a seminar for a company, it's a Zoom. I do it on a Zoom call. I record it for the company, and they get to keep that material, that content, so they can share it with their employees. And the people that dial in on this, it's very rewarding. I got all these people dialing in. They got questions, and then they're like, I really didn't know. So I want to do more of that. So I can schedule a lot more of these throughout the day, get compensated, but also help a lot more people. The companies are very impressed with how the whole concept of the thing was put together, and they liked it. The wellness programs I put in place had a 90% retention rate, which is unheard of in the health and fitness industry.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, one of the keys I think for you is that you're not going to ask a client to do anything you haven't proven yourself. And so when you work with Arman, you're getting, a card carrying professional bodybuilder that is going to make sure that whatever the supplement he's recommending actually does work, because he uses it himself. So before we get into our very last segment here, please remind all of our listeners how they would get in contact with you.
Well, you can email me, arman@eliteexecmethod.com, or you can find me on social media. I have LinkedIn, I'm on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok. I do have a Twitter account, but I don't do a whole lot with that. But you can do that route, or you can also go to armaneckelbarger.com, my website. I also have another website, eliteexecmethod.com.
Awesome. All right, ready for rapid fire? Are you more of an early bird or a night owl?
Early bird.
And do you prefer mountains or beach?
Beach.
Yeah, now that you live in Florida, yep. And then coffee, tea, or something else.
Coffee.
Have so much wealth of knowledge in health, wellness, and physical fitness as well. And we're excited to continue on this road with you and helping our listeners know that they can do and feel better as well for themselves. So, everyone that's listening, please join us live on Tuesdays at 4 p.m. Eastern, 1 p.m. Pacific for our live broadcast. And remember, wellness, it's in you.